Hi guys, it's Rach. Today I have another book chat video for you guys because I've been reading up A Storm and I thought I would share some of the books that I've been reading and what I thought about them. As always, I will list all the books that I talk about in the description box below, and if you want to keep up to date with what I'm reading as I'm reading it, go follow me on Goodreads. If you are a reader and don't have a profile, I would highly recommend it because it's just a great website. They have an app as well which I use to kind of update on the run, and it's a nice way to just keep track of what books that you are reading. So this time I actually wrote down some notes. I have my So You Read My Notebook. Unfortunately now I have to call you notebook from Typo, which can I just say is awesome. Typo has awesome notebooks if you are like me and are addicted to notebooks even though you have nothing to use them for. Anyway, I'm going to jump straight into it. I'm going to start with the book that I'm currently reading, or this series that I'm currently reading, by Alicia Ray. I don't know how to say that, which one it is, but it was Beautiful Chances I've read. I'm currently reading My Beautiful, and then there's Beautiful Dreams that come after it, and then I think there's another one after that, but that may concentrate on a different couple. This one that I'm currently reading, so far I like them. I'm kind of, I don't know, I'm an arse. Some of the writing or the way it's written doesn't necessarily gel with me as much as some other books that I've read. I find that the writing is very descriptive of the feelings. The guy in it is almost, he's too perfect at the moment, other than he's being slightly possessive, which in books most girls like the guy to be a little bit possessive of the girl, especially since when it comes to the really important things, he lets the girl make her own decision anyway. So he almost is a little bit too perfect, and some of the feeling parts are almost too explicit. Like, I think, who talks like that? Nobody, I guess, shares their feelings necessarily that way. But other than that, the overall story, it's a nice romance story. So far, I will continue to read the story. It's a little bit slow in parts, I've been finding, but I'm enjoying it, and I will continue to keep on reading it because I kind of want to see what happens. The main girl in the story is kind of running from a tragedy in her past, and then she meets this guy and he basically changed her world, and now she is I guess trying to just come to terms with that tragedy. So that's what's going on in that story. I also recently read Girl in Love by Casey Quinn. This is the third and I think final book in the Kylie Ryan series. Don't quote me on that, but I think it is. The first one was Girl with a Guitar and the second one was Girl on Tour. This series, I read the first two books prior to Christmas, so I had to kind of remember what happened, but it's about a girl who is, I guess, the very first book she starts out as coming from a bad past. Her father's passed away, her stepmother is evil, and she's basically kicked out, and all she has is her guitar. She goes to Nashville because she wants to make it in country music, and she's talented. She gets a job at a bar and happens to sing at an open mic night and gets seen, and I guess you kind of go on from there about her rise in the music industry, but also the country music industry, but also her relationship with a current country music star whose name is Trace, and the dramas that unfold in that. So the first book, I think, ended just kind of normally. The second book definitely ended on a cliffhanger, so I was waiting for this third book to see what happened between Kylie and Trace. This last book that I read, it kind of had a lot of drama, and they had basically, without trying to give too many spoilers, had been apart, and it was about him trying to work his way back and work over his demons to get her back. There was a lot of drama, there was a lot of toing and froing, and at some points I thought, you know what, this book could have been half the length if they had have just said what they were feeling and been open and honest with each other from the start, rather than assuming that he was with someone else and she was with someone else and things like that. It's one of those kind of stories, but it wasn't so much that you felt like that time apart was wasted. Like, it was actually necessary. Sometimes the authors split the characters up, and really the issue that they split up over was something really minor, and it didn't warrant a whole book of them sort of trying to work out their issues. Whereas their issues, they were talking about drug and alcohol, or mainly alcohol abuse, and issues with I guess domestic abuse and issues with parents and things like that. So there were definite other issues other than like the romantic story that was touched on, which was nice. It definitely was a well-rounded story. I liked the secondary characters in this whole series as well, so that was good. And I also liked that it touched on Nashville and various areas in America and country music, because that's just something that I enjoy in general. So that was a nice part of this series, and I would definitely read more of it if there was more books. I don't think there was from memory. This is what happens when you read so many books that you can't remember whether books left it open for another book or not. I feel like it probably ended at a nice spot, but then there's always, yes, there was an epilogue, I do remember now, so we saw how it progressed. Yeah, so there may be potential, I think there may even be potential for books from secondary characters as well. So either way, I really enjoyed that series by Casey Quinn. The next one that I want to mention, I mentioned in my last book chat the series by Jay McLean. I mentioned More Than Us and More Than Her, and I said that More Than Him was about to come out, and then as I was editing the video, the book actually had come out and I read it, and I loved it. It was so good. This has been so far probably my favourite series from the start of this year. Obviously we're only in February, but I really have been enjoying it. I love the characters, as I said last time. This book again concentrated on Amanda and Logan, because the first book kind of didn't really end on a cliffhanger, but the second book did, because I guess Logan had gone off and we just didn't know what was going to happen with Amanda and Logan, and it was terrible because they're meant to be together. Anyway, so this book is I guess Amanda and Logan reuniting and seeing what happens with their friends, and how Amanda sort of deals with the fact that Logan left her, and how Logan deals with the fact that they had been seriously hurt by people from his past in the previous book. It was just, there was a lot of emotions going on. I didn't mind, this book had flashbacks, I guess, not so much flashbacks, but diary entries of Logan's from his time away, because basically they'd been, I think it's been a whole year, a year almost in time between the last book and this book. And usually sometimes flashbacks or past diary entries and things can get annoying. I'm like, I just want to know what's happening next, but this didn't bother me the way it was written. I quite enjoyed it. I liked hearing it. It was emotional, it was funny, there was times where it was gut-wrenching. I really enjoyed it. To be honest, I wish that I could be friends with Lucy. Drunk Lucy and I reckon we could get on really well. I would love to meet her in real life. I wish it really existed. Like I said, the secondary characters are amazing. It looks like there will be another book, and the next book will concentrate on Lucy and Cameron, which were secondary characters in the first 3 books, and I can't wait, because I'm pretty sure Lucy is my favourite character in the whole series. She's amazing. Would highly recommend these books. I think you'll enjoy them if you enjoy contemporary, new adult kind of romance stories. Anyway, moving on, the next person I want to talk about was Marie Force. I read some more of her books. I've mentioned her in millions of favourites videos. I've read her entire Gansett Island, or McCarthy's of Gansett Island series. I think it used to be McCarthy's of Gansett Island, now it's just Gansett Island. Anyway, love that series. There's been tons of books. The book that I read was number 10. So like I said, I've read 10 books, and I read number 10 and the novella. So number 10 was called Meant for Love, and then Chance for Love was a like 10.5 or number 11. I love this series. I love all the characters. I love the fact that you get to hear about characters from past books, not just in passing, but you actually get little snippets of actual dialogue between the couples, totally separate from the main couple of that book. I was so happy that Jenny finally got her story, and her and Alex seem to work really well together, so I really enjoyed them as a couple. I also enjoyed the novella. It was short and sweet, but I was really sort of happy just to hear a little bit more about the characters. I do highly recommend Marie Force's books. I also read from her a book from a new series which is called Your Love Is All I Need. And this book is based around, looks like each book is going to be based around a member of a family. There are 10 children in this family, so it looks like we'll be getting at least 10 books. It's based in, I can't remember which state in the US, but Vermont. Somewhere where it gets really cold in winter. Anyway, I enjoyed this story. It was about a web designer from New York coming to design a website for this family who happens to own a number of businesses that work together, but one of them is like I guess like a general store kind of thing. the chemistry between the characters was great. I also loved hearing about the rest of the family. You kind of not only fall in love with the two main characters, but with also the rest of the family. So it really sucks you in. So now you want to read the next 9 books for each member of the family to hope that they get their happily ever after. You kind of are guaranteed a happily ever after. If you're one of these people that need a lot of drama, then these probably aren't for you. But if you just like hearing about a couple and how they get together and how they sort of work over their obstacles and getting to love a place and a family and secondary characters and things like that, then I definitely think you'll enjoy. Okay, so the next couple of books that I want to talk about were from Ali Everhart, I believe is how you say it. This is from the Jade series. So I read 2 books before Christmas, which was Choosing You and Knowing You, and then just in the last couple of weeks I've read Loving You and Promising You. This series has kind of been about a girl and a guy who are in college. The girl is from a, Jade obviously, is from a, I guess, she has a bad past. Her mother was a little bit crazy and died when she was young, and she was sort of brought up by these 2 guys, that father and son, who happen to sort of know the mother, and she doesn't know who her father is, and she doesn't have a lot of money, and she has been given a scholarship to go to this kind of fancy boutique, not boutique, kind of posh little college in America. He, on the other hand, happens to come from a very, very wealthy family where everybody, I guess, has a lot of money, and your life and your path is sort of set out for you, where people, I guess, you get put together as a couple with people who are not so much for love, but for the name or what better alliance it can create. Does that stuff really exist? I'm always really curious, because I obviously don't come from a background of wealth or where your last name means something, but I'd be interested to know if there really are places where life is like that, and where people are so rich and having a name, a certain last name, means something, and your parents force you to fake date or really date or marry people just because the daughter happens to be, I don't know, the father. Yeah, like it really blows my mind. Or if it's a political alliance, things like that. Anyway, this is what this story is kind of about. So if that interests you in any way, then you'd probably like this series. Anyway, the guy falls for the girl against his father's wishes, against probably society's wishes, because you don't usually put those type of people together. Anyway. And it's basically about their stories sort of coming together. In the end of the second book, the father had kind of accepted the fact that Jade was now in his son's life, and something kind of dramatic had happened, and thanks to his power and wealth and connections, it got covered up, and now she kind of knows about it, so she's part of the family, because she knows that in this society that people are basically, this fictional, I guess, organization controls what people do and how much money they have, and will cover up things like people being murdered, and they pick and decide potentially what political candidates will become president someday. So that's kind of the general basis of the story. The next 2 books are basically finding out about a little bit more about who Jade's dad happened to be, and you find out that she's kind of tied up in this world as well through sort of distant links. And yeah, it's about them kind of realizing that they may not be able to be together, and dealing with that and trying to work out a way to, I guess, beat this fictional all-powerful organization so they can be together in the future. And it's basically that kind of story. The 4th book ends with a kind of a finality, so that could be the end of the series. However, I believe that the author did say that there's potential to have maybe spin-off series with other characters or things like that. I actually quite enjoyed it. You do have to, I guess, it's not necessarily as realistic as some other books are, in terms of if you believe that that kind of stuff really happens, and you believe that there maybe are, if you're a little bit of a conspiracy theorist and believe that there are maybe people controlling, the wealthy people controlling who marries who and who ends up president and things like that, then maybe it's a bit more realistic. I think you have to take the story with a grain of salt a little bit, but overall I quite enjoyed the series. I loved the couple, and I loved the other characters in it, and I would recommend it if it's something that you're interested in. They're really quick, easy reads, and I found that there was enough in them that you want to just keep on reading, you want to know what was happening next, which I think is a sign of a good book. Okay, last but not least, the one last sort of series that I want to talk about was the Rocker series by Terry Ann Browning. I read this quite a while ago now, but I didn't talk about it in my last book chat, and it was around that time, so I thought I would quickly chuck it into this one. This is the Rocker series, so I believe I've read 5 books and there's a 6th one that is going to come out maybe in April or something like that. So it was the rocker that holds me, the rocker that savors me, the rocker that needs me, the rocker that loves me, the rocker that holds her, and then the next one will be Rocker's Babies. It's about a band called Demon Wings. The first book is Ember and Nick, and you kind of get to hear the backstory about how the band got together, these 4 guys who kind of lived in the same trailer park and wanted to get out of there and had talent to play music. And you also hear about Ember, who is a character who will feature in the rest of the books, but she's the main female character in the first book, and about how they found her and how they used to look after her when she was a child and being abused by her mother. She lived in the same trailer park. They are all significantly older than her, about 10 years older than her, and they looked after her, and this is then you kind of jump ahead to the fact that she kind of helps manage their band, and that's where the story really starts. One thing in this series I would say is that you have to be okay with decent size age differences. All the books, the guy was significantly older than the girl, which didn't really bother me. I've kind of found for myself personally, which is really odd, that I don't have as much issue with the guy being older than the girl as I do with the girl being older than the guy, which is really stupid and kind of backwards of me, and I probably have to work that out in my own head, but for some reason that's just how I think. So the guys are significantly older than the girls. If that's going to really bother you, then probably skip this series, because they're all like at least 10 plus years older than their female counterpart in each of the books. The first book, like I said, is Nick and Ember, and then the next 3 books you get to see the stories of the 3 other bandmates, and then the 5th book is, I think it's Nick and Ember again, but from Nick's point of view, so that was kind of nice to hear. Nice stories. I like sort of hearing about the band and how they are a family and how they get really close, and about how once these women come into their lives, they become part of the family too, which is it's a nice kind of mentality to think about, kind of building your own family, because they all came from backgrounds that aren't the greatest, whether they've lost their parents or they weren't the greatest parents in the first place. So they kind of created their own family through the band, which I really liked. It did have that almost sense of things worked out so perfectly that the next girl that comes along for the next band member happens to end up being best friends with Ember, and so on and so forth. Things like that. There's little things that maybe wouldn't necessarily work out as perfectly in real life as they do in the book, but again, that's something that I don't have an issue with. I kind of get past that, because it's just what happens in books. You want things to kind of work out a little bit perfectly in books, so then they can have their happily ever afters and whatnot. So that is everything that I want to talk about in this book chat. I have no idea how long I've talked for, probably way too long. The next book that I'm going to be reading is by Michelle Maddow. This is The Secret Diamond Sisters. I got an advanced reader's copy, the first time I've ever gotten an advanced reader's copy. And I've been holding out on reading it because I didn't want to talk about it too far in advance, but now it actually comes out in March, so you'll probably be able to get it soon as I start talking about it. But I'm looking forward to reading this. I have read books by Michelle Maddow before. She's a relatively new author, and I enjoyed her last books, and I'd love to hear what you guys are reading. As always, share that with me in the comments below, and I will talk to you guys all in my next book chat video. Bye!
See, I don't need to run away, places you would not believe, seeing all these pretty girls, wishing you were there with me. Simple when you smile, girl, tell me all I need to know. You can be my